the Chief Justice of the Republic of the Philippines, the Senior Associate Justice, and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court of the Philippines. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having business before the Honorable Supreme Court of the Philippines shall give their attention, for the court is now in session.
Please be seated.
Madam Clerk of Court, please call the cases before us.
Good morning, Your Honors. Scheduled for today's oral arguments are the consolidated petitions in GR number 271059, Representative Edsel C. Lagman et al. Versus the Congress of the Philippines et al. GR number 271347, Aquilino Coco Pimentel III and Pantaleon Bebot Alvarez versus Lucas P. Bersamin in his capacity as Executive Secretary et al. GR number E-02472, Filipinos for Peace, Justice, and Progress Movement Incorporated, or FPJPM, as represented by its President and Chairperson, Joseph Cadsawan, and Chapter Officer, Gloria Puzon, versus House of Representatives et al., and GR number E-04036, Edgar Erice and Laila de Lima versus the Senate of the Philippines et al. Thank you, Your Honor.
Appearances, please.
For petitioners Lagman et al., Attorney Lorenzo Artañaga, and Attorney Barameda.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Attorney Elmar C. Barreda of the Lagman Law Offices, and I am respectfully entering my appearance as counsel for the petitioners in GR number 271059, Your Honors, please. Thank you, Your Honors.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jericho Salenga appearing as counsel for petitioners Aquilino Coco Pimentel III and Pantaleon Bebot Alvarez. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Attorney Joseph Lamel Baligod Bakiran, respectfully appearing as counsel for petitioners FPJPM with Attorney Relene Arellano, Your Honor. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honors. Attorney Relene Arellano for petitioner FPJPM.
To file the manifestation. We request to file.
Chief Justice Alexander Esmundo, Senior Associate Justice Marvic MVF Leon, and Honorable Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, good morning. I'm Attorney Vopetro Angie Peña, counsel for petitioners Edgar Erice and Laila de Lima.
Good morning, Your Honors. I am Attorney Bianca Isabel D. Soriano, also counsel for petitioners in GR number 04036, Congressman Egay Erice and Congresswoman Laila de Lima. Thank you, Your Honors.
Mary, for petitioners in GR 271059, Pimentel et al., may we request the counsel to file the appropriate manifestation for the substitution of the parties with respect to deceased petitioner Edsel Lagman.
Good morning, Your Honors. May I please proceed? Your Honors, please, we filed a written manifestation, Your Honor, that for the proposed substitution, Your Honor, of the late deceased Congressman Edsel Lagman, Your Honor. And our proposed substitution, Your Honor, is the current Congresswoman of the 1st District of Albay, which is Congresswoman Shelo Crisel P. Lagman, Your Honors, please. She is around in today's proceeding, Your Honors, please.
Thank you. Duly noted.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Appearance for the respondents, please.
Good morning, Your Honors. The Office of the Solicitor General respectfully enters its appearance on behalf of the respondents in these consolidated petitions. I am Solicitor General Darlene Marie B. Berberabe. With me today, Your Honors, are Assistant Solicitor General Marisa B. de la Cruz Galandines, Assistant Solicitor General Maria Victoria V. Sardillo, Assistant Solicitor General George O. Ortha, Assistant Solicitor General Jennifer F. Fanjalan Legaspi, Assistant Solicitor General Samantha P. Kamitan, Assistant Solicitor General Orlando P. Polinar, and Assistant Solicitor General Mark L. Perete. Other lawyers of the OSG are in the gallery to provide assistance whenever necessary, Your Honors.
Appearing as Amici Curie are Professor Sulita Collas Monsod, Professor Emeritus, University of the Philippines School of Economics, Attorney Florencio B. Abad, Professor of Praxis, Ateneo School of Government, Honorable Franklin M. Dirod, former President of the Senate of the Philippines, and Honorable Benjamin E. Jokno, Member, Monetary Board, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Thank you very much. As discussed during the preliminary conference conducted last February 4, 2026, and as is stated in the advisory dated February 18, 2026, the parties shall be heard in the following manner. 1. Counsel for petitioners in the consolidated petitions will be heard jointly for 30 minutes. 2. Counsel for the respondents shall be heard immediately after the completion of counsels for petitioners' argument. They shall also have a total of 30 minutes to present their arguments. The time allotted for a counsel to argue shall be exclusive of the time devoted to interpellation by the members of the court. The interpellation of the members of the court will immediately follow after both parties complete the presentation of their arguments. The Counsel of Petitioners may now approach the podium for their presentation.
The Honorable Chief Justice, Senior Associate Justice, and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, good day. I'm Attorney Vopetro Angie Peña. I will be addressing the procedural issue and 4 substantive issues, namely whether unprogrammed appropriations violate Section 22, Article 7, requiring the budget to have sources of financing, whether unprogrammed appropriations are rider provisions, and whether unprogrammed appropriations violate the separation of powers and the effect and undue delegation of legislative power. On the sole procedural issue, petitioners respectfully submit that a temporary restraining order must issue enjoining the implementation of Section 43 of RA 12314 or the General Appropriations Act of 2026. Petitioners possess a clear and unmistakable right as citizen taxpayers to ensure that public funds are appropriated and disbursed strictly in accordance with the Constitution. Your Honors, the unprogrammed appropriations create a contingent pool of funds that circumvents the constitutional design of the Constitution and appropriations. It also violates the separation of powers and affects an undue delegation of legislative power. By conditioning release of funds on future events, Congress cedes to the executive the authority to determine when unprogrammed appropriations take effect. This is impermissible post-enactment discretion as prescribed in Belgica versus Ochoa, and it also a clear violation of the separation of powers as affirmed in Arroyo versus Aquino. When fiscal measures erode constitutional boundaries, judicial intervention is imperative. This court in Belgica enjoined the release of PDAF funds to prevent unconstitutional disbursement. This court as well in Pimentel issued a TRO against the transfer of PhilHealth funds and the implementation of constitutional rider in Special Provision 1D under unprogrammed appropriations. In both instances, the court preserved the status quo and prevented the irreversible expenditure of public funds pending judicial review. The same necessity is present here because of the constitutional infirmities in the unprogrammed appropriations. For most, unprogrammed appropriations constitute a rider. The Constitution requires that every provision in the GAA must be germane to a particular appropriation. The President himself recognized that the national budget is 6.793 trillion, corresponding only to programmed appropriations, thereby confirming that the unprogrammed appropriations stand apart from the GAA. Not being related to a particular appropriation, it violates Article 7, Section 22 of the Constitution. As underscored in our earlier, Your Honors, public funds may be disbursed only pursuant to a valid appropriation supported by law. Section 43 identifies no concrete funding source. It relies instead on conditions, excess revenues, new revenues, or loan proceeds. These are not sources of funding, but mere contingencies upon which funding may arise. The President acknowledged in his veto message that releases from the unprogrammed appropriations will still require specification of funding source. This confirms that at the time of enactment, there is no funding base for the revised AFP modernization program, the program for risk management, and the support to foreign-assisted projects. Without a funding base, there is no valid appropriation. Respondents characterize these items as standby appropriation. But Your Honors, the Constitution has only one mechanism for contingent spending: special appropriations, wherein Congress itself determines at a proper time whether additional expenditures are warranted. The structure of the UA also violates the non-delegation doctrine. Here, the power to determine when unprogrammed appropriations take effect is left entirely to the executive. The executive thus decides not only how to implement the law, but also when it takes effect. The President acknowledged the availability of supplemental appropriations, yet allowed the unprogrammed appropriations to stand. Your Honors, constitutional compliance cannot yield to convenience, practice, or concurrence between political branches. The injury is also actual and imminent. The provision authorizes the release of funds at any time, exposing public funds to immediate unconstitutional disbursement. Once released, they are permanently spent, causing grave and irreparable injury. This honorable court must declare unprogrammed appropriations as unconstitutional to reaffirm that only Congress wields the power of the purse, that appropriations rest on our ascertainable funding, and that all public spending must be done within the strict bounds the Constitution commands. Your Honors, if the unprogrammed appropriations are not blank checks, they are checks drawn against insufficient funds, issued not by the people through Congress, but by the executive. These checks must be voided before they are even honored and drawn against the account of the Filipino people. I end my presentation here. I will cede the podium, Your Honors, to my co-counsel. Thank you, Your Honor, for your time and indulgence. May it please the court.
Thank you.
I have a presentation, Your Honor, just a short one. Notice, when we use colloquially budget, it means negative. When our supposed representatives use it, it adds. And at whose expense? I asked the court to picture an ordinary Filipino family at their kitchen table. At night, a father places his day's wages on the table, and a mother opens a worn notebook to carefully divide what little they have: rice, tuition, medicine, transportation. Every peso is assigned. Every choice has a consequence. For that family, the budget is a hard limit, not predicted. When money runs out, spending stops. Multiply that limit to the rest of Filipinos, and you have the discipline of a nation. Last time I checked, this nation is a representative democracy. Why then are our representatives doing everything in their power to not represent that discipline? In the Republic Act number 11975, the 2024 General Appropriations Act, that discipline was set aside. Instead of a fixed and accountable budget, what was created is a system where spending may expand, shift, and be triggered after the law has already been enacted, without the full safeguards required by the Constitution. At the core of this case are three questions. First, whether program appropriations violate Section 25(4) of Article 6. Second, whether Congress may increase these appropriations beyond what the President proposed. And third, whether Congress may enact new programs, activities, and projects. These questions may appear technical, but they all point to a single principle. The Constitution requires discipline, clarity, accountability in the use of public funds. On the first issue, Section 25(4) of the Constitution requires that any special appropriations bill state the purpose and be supported by funds actually available as certified by the National Treasurer, or be matched with a corresponding revenue proposal. These are not mere technicalities. They are safeguards designed to prevent abuse and to ensure that the government cannot simply move money around at will. However, program appropriations do not comply with these requirements. They become usable only later when certain conditions are met, are not funded at the time the law is passed, and in relation to Section 25(5), do not depend on savings. In the 2024 GAA, these conditions were even expanded to include, among others, the use of government-owned or controlled corporations' fund balances. This means that spending authority can arise after the budget has already been approved. That is not transfer of funds within constitutional limits. It is in substance the creation of a new appropriation after the enactment. When spending authority exists without savings, without definite appropriation at the outset, and without safeguards required by the Constitution, Section 25(4) is not being followed. It is being bypassed. On the second issue, the Constitution is equally clear. Congress may not increase the appropriations recommended by the President. This rule ensures fiscal discipline by requiring that the national budget be anchored on the executive's projections of revenues and expenditures. The President's proposal reflects a coherent fiscal plan based on actual economic realities. Yet in this case, Congress expanded on program appropriations far beyond what was recommended. What was originally limited to 8 purposes was enacted to 51 purposes, transforming a narrow standby mechanism into a broad and flexible source of spending authority. Even if the total figures may appear similar at first glance, the Constitution is not concerned only with arithmetic totals, but with the power those figures represent. By expanding the purposes, the triggers, and the flexibility of these appropriations, Congress effectively increased the government's authority to spend. This is a functional increase, one that achieves indirectly what the Constitution expressly prohibits directly. If this is allowed, the prohibition in Section 25(1) becomes meaningless, as Congress could always bypass it simply by labeling appropriations as conditional rather than actual. On the third issue, the reclassification of programs, activities, and projects between program and unprogrammed appropriations further undermines constitutional safeguards. A programmed appropriation is funded, definite, and ready for implementation, while an unprogrammed appropriation is contingent and uncertain. Allowing movement between these categories changes the natures of the appropriation itself. A project that was certain becomes uncertain, and one that was conditional may later be treated as funded, all without passing a new law. This is not merely an administrative adjustment. It is, in effect, a rewriting of the budget after it has already been approved. Such mechanism defeats the requirement of specificity, weakens accountability by deferring decisions to post-enactment processes, and blurs the separation of powers by shifting fiscal decision-making away from Congress at the time of legislation. Ultimately, what emerges from these mechanisms is a system that the Constitution does not recognize, a shadow budget that is contingent, expandable, and dependent on discretion after enactment. Public funds belong to the people, and their use must be governed by clear constitutional limits, not by shifting conditions or post-enactment authority. If an ordinary Filipino family must live within its limits, then our representatives must live within the Constitution. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you.
May it please the court. I'm Attorney Joseph Lemel Bakiran, Your Honor, respectfully appearing as counsel for petitioner FPJPM. For the petitioner's FPJPM, Your Honor, we are assigned two topics. That is, whether the legislative branch may validly increase the amount of special accounts in the general fund recommended by the executive branch. And the second one is whether the legislative branch validly increase the earmarked funds for the Road Users Fund by reallocating items in the 2025 General Appropriations Act. Your Honors, this petition raises constitutional question of the highest importance, whether Congress, through the Bicameral Conference Committee, may increase appropriations beyond those recommended by the President in violation of Article 6, Section 25, Paragraph 1 of the Constitution. At stake, Your Honors, is not merely a difference in figures. What is at stake is the constitutional boundary between the executive initiative and legislative authority and the integrity of the national budget process itself. Your Honors, the facts are undisputed. The President submitted the 2025 National Expenditure Program with a total expenditure level of 6.352 trillion, including 27.352 billion in special accounts in the general fund. These special accounts in the general fund form part of automatic appropriations, funds governed by law, sourced from earmarked revenues and intended to operate with limited legislative discretion. Among these is the Special Road Fund, sourced from motor vehicles users charged under Republic Act 8794, as amended, strictly tied to actual collections and specific statutory issues. However, Your Honors, during the bicameral deliberations, Congress introduced substantial increases. The special accounts in the general fund was increased from 27.352 billion to 40.107 billion. The special road fund was increased from 16.756 billion to a staggering 34.748 billion, or an amount of 17.992 billion, Your Honors. These are not minor adjustments. These are structural expansion of the budget. This brings us to the first issue, whether Congress may increase appropriations beyond the President's proposal. The Constitution is unequivocal. Article 6, Section 25(1) expressly prohibits Congress from increasing the appropriations recommended by the President. Congress may reduce, may realign, or modify, but it may not increase. Yet here, Your Honors, the Bicameral Conference Committee did precisely what the Constitution forbids. By increasing the special accounts in the general fund, an automatic appropriation, Congress expanded the total expenditure program beyond the President's proposed ceiling. This is not amendment. This is unconstitutional expansion. The violation becomes more pronounced when the nature of these funds is considered. Special accounts in the general fund are not ordinary appropriations. They are funded by earmarked revenues. They are governed by specific statutes. And they are automatically appropriated based on available income. In short, they are revenue-bound and self-executing. Yet Congress increased these funds without any corresponding increase in earmarked revenues. This breaks a fundamental rule that special funds may only be spent to the extent of what is actually collected or authorized by law. This leads to the second issue, whether Congress gravely abused its discretion in increasing the special road fund beyond its lawful limits. The special road fund is clear in both law and structure. It is funded exclusively by the motor vehicles users charge and may only be programmed within actual or projected collections. But here, Your Honors, the additional 17.992 billion did not come from the motor vehicle users' collections. It came from pooled funds and general budgetary sources. Your Honors, this is constitutionally untenable. Because once a fund is detached from its earmarked source, it ceases to be a special fund. It becomes an unauthorized appropriation, merely labeled as one. Taken together, these acts reveal a clear pattern of unconstitutional overreach. First, by increasing appropriations beyond the President's proposal. And second, by detaching special funds from the statutory revenue sources. Both acts produce the same result, an unauthorized expansion of the national budget. Your Honors, this case is not about policy.